Hey everyone, Chris Carter here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. We've got Alan Saunders on today. I want to talk with him about Aaron Rodgers and just how much the Steelers should be asking of him in 2025. Not doing too much, trying to expect him to be an MVP quarterback, but still being the veteran that helps the offense get on task. We'll also talk about Jaire Alexander being released and how that might impact the free agent market. And will the TJ Watt drama end soon with his contract situation? All here in the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things in the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show in your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. As I said before, we're joined by the man himself, Alan Saunders. He's back on the show, as always, from SteelersNow.com. Alan, let's talk about Aaron Rodgers. I want to lead with something that you were talking about on your own show and you were doing for Steelers Now, in that there are a lot of people who are down about Aaron Rodgers. He's about to bring doom and destruction to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you thought that was a bit much.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see how this move is going to go badly for the Steelers. I mean, he's not going to be great. I mean, we know what he is. He's 42 years old. His last season he was even like average was 2022, maybe kind of average. Like the expectations should be reasonably muted here, but like also there's not a lot of downside in this move for the Pittsburgh Steelers. There isn't a football reason not to like this move. I think that's the big thing. I like there's no football reason. Like he made them better. It cost not very much money. Most of the contract is incentives, and they're a better team now. That's the whole point of this.
So I think the thing is that some people might be sitting there and saying, well, wait a minute. He only won 5 games with the Jets last year. He didn't play the year before that. And he went 8-9 the year before his last year with the Packers. So how does he make him better if he's not even doing as well as Mason Rudolph? Well, as Mina Kimes will hit everyone over the head with a stick with, she'll remind you that QB wins are not a stat, or wins are not a QB stat. But I do look at this, and I do think there is a reasonable sense of caution from Steelers fans who might be saying, like, hey, man, like, the Jets got entirely blown up by this guy. Like, Robert Saleh out the door, the entire organization, it just completely imploded. When they signed Aaron Rodgers, there was a hope that they were on the verge of being a real contender in the NFL. Couldn't that happen to the Steelers? And my thing here is this, and I've said it before on this show, and I'm going to put a bigger emphasis on it for this show. It all depends on how much you put into what you ask out of Aaron Rodgers. When he was signed by the Jets, they handed him the key to the city. They said, please come and make us Super Bowl champions. He got a $150 million deal over 3 years. He was given all the money to be the superstar quarterback. They let him pick the OC, let him do what he wanted. He had say over so many different things. I would be very shocked if the Steelers did anything like that. They already haven't by handing him a $13.6 million contract that can go up to 19 with incentives and has only $10 million guaranteed. And I don't foresee them hiring a whole bunch of coaches and players that he just requests. Now, maybe they get one receiver like an Alan Lazard or Romeo Doubs, and maybe that works out because they do need help at that position. But I don't think that Aaron Rodgers is going to be asked to do nearly as much in the Steelers offense than maybe what the Packers were planning in their last season with him and the Jets were hoping in their 2 years with him.
Yeah, there's just not as much of an opportunity for things to go badly because Aaron Rodgers is just a hired hand of quarterback. That's all he is. He's just like Russell Wilson last year. Things did not go well personality-wise between Russell Wilson and Arthur Smith and some other members of the offense. I think I feel pretty comfortable saying that as we sit here now. But none of that came out in any sort of negative way throughout the course of the season. Why? Because Russell Wilson had no say in anything. He was just a hired hand at quarterback. Now, after the season, the Steelers were like, let's not do that again. And that very well could happen again, where the Steelers go through the season with Aaron Rodgers and at the end of it say, you know what? Let's not go down that road again. But that's like the worst case scenario here. If things don't go well, like personality wise, it's just that they're going to say, you know what? Forget it. Let's go in a different direction for some guy to hold our rookie's hand in 2026. Like They're not set up to get burnt by that the way other teams are. Very similar to what happened in Denver with Russell Wilson. But Denver, Russell Wilson was a disaster. Oh, my God. There's a headline story on ESPN every day, blah, blah. Was Russell Wilson perfect in Pittsburgh? No, but he was fine. And that's what you're going to see with Aaron Rodgers here, too.
I think that's the thing here. And I did a film study that should be up on the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette by now about Aaron Rodgers and striking the right balance with him. Even outside of like the organizational structuring and the paying of Aaron Rodgers, what I think they're going to ask him to do in the Steelers offense, I don't think they're going to be asking him to thread needles between 3 defenders too often this year. I think they're going to say, hey, Aaron, we're hoping to develop a more efficient run game with the investments we've made in the offensive line, Jaylen Warren, Kaleb Johnson. We want that to be a feature, but we do want you to make smart reads and adjustments and play around that. But play around that. Don't try to be the straw that stirs the drink all the time, because one thing that I look back at, a lot of his interceptions, some of them were off of drops, but also some of his tougher interceptions I saw were him trying to thread needles that was just like, man, like I could tell that wasn't an opportune throw where he was trying to force the issue, because last year with the Jets, he was supposed to be the Jets offense. He was supposed to be the guy that did it all, that made Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson and Alan Lazard and Mike Williams, which that was their wide receiver room at one point, made all of that work for them. They built everything around him, just like they did in Green Bay. The Steelers haven't built everything around Aaron Rodgers. They're building things the way they want to build things for the future, which presumably for the rookie quarterback that they want to draft next year. Aaron Rodgers just be coming and say, hey, you ain't doing all that. All you got to do is play to this system, make smart reads. We'll give you the liberty of making some adjustments here or there at the line of scrimmage, but we're trusting your ability to understand defenses and how to counter them to work with that system and play that way. And I think that amount of that balance of play to this system and don't ask him to do too much while still getting that bit of his expertise to understand defenses and how the offense should counteract with that. I think that is the sweet spot that Arthur Smith has to find, and Mike Tomlin has to find this year for the Steelers offense with Aaron Rodgers if they want things to work.
And very similarly to the Steelers being in a different place than the Jets when they acquire Aaron Rodgers is in a different place now than when he got to the Jets. Failure is generally humbling for people. Like, do you think Aaron Rodgers wants to go out with that 2-year stint with the Jets where he wins 5 games, 6?
No,
5. That wants to be what defines him. No, and I don't think he's stupid either. So he's going to look at what went well and what went right and say, hey, I probably need the Steelers a little bit too. I need a team that has a structure that I can play within. I'm 42 years old now. I can't be Superman out there. And so it's got to work from both sides, and I think there's reason to think it will.
I think that's the thing here is that, like you said, Aaron Rodgers being in a different place and maybe even a better place could be another aspect here. Like you said, when Brett Favre went to the Vikings, he wasn't Brett Favre of old. He kind of played to what they wanted. And I think similarly here, like you're hoping that the Steelers are hoping that he understands, hey man, like, it didn't work the last 2 times, but what we're asking you to do here isn't going to be what they're asking you to. And I think that could be the biggest difference because, again, he can make very smart reads, both short, quick reads off the line of scrimmage and also deeper understandings of when a defense is disguising something. And how many times have we seen Steelers quarterbacks in the past 4 years, even past 5 years with Ben Roethlisberger, where when a defense has shown man coverage or a version of a defense, and then they switched into a different defense that they were disguising, and the quarterback of the Steelers is just like, what do I do? I don't know what I'm doing here. And they either throw an interception, take a bad sack, or it just ruins the whole play. That's where Aaron Rodgers, I think, can be the biggest asset because that cerebral ability is still there for him to be able to say, hey, I'm not going to get as caught up and confused. We're going to have plans to counteract that. And if they can, again, find that without tasking that too much to bail them out this year because the runs game's developed, the offensive line's getting better, and the defense is still playing at a high level, if those things happen, that could be the ticket to finding the right sweet spot of success for Aaron Rodgers.
It's interesting you bring up Brett Favre. 2008 with the Jets, 3,400 yards, 22 touchdowns, an NFL high 22 interceptions. The next year goes to Minnesota, 4,200 yards, 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. It's like the fit matters so much for a quarterback. And I don't think what was going on, like the Jets are just a dysfunctional organization. Like, I don't think you can look at exactly what Rodgers did over the last 2 seasons and say, oh, that's all the better he can be in Pittsburgh.
Absolutely. We're going to take another former Packer who recently just became available. That's Jaire Alexander. So the Steelers go after him. I want to talk to him and the other looks at free agents and other potential position players to acquire. That's next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Alan Saunders. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I remind you, this show is brought to you by Monarch Money. If you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you can stop managing your money and start actually building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year only at Monarch Money. We're back here in the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Alan Saunders of SteelersNow.com. Alan, let's talk about Jaire Alexander for a second. Jaire Alexander, of course, cornerback, 2-time Pro Bowl cornerback, and second-team All-Pro cornerback for the Packers, was released yesterday morning by the Packers. There were notable contract disputes and, questions of his his locker room personality with the team. And so now he's a free agent. And of course, all the tweets came at me. Chris, they're getting Jaire Alexander, right? Of course, they're getting Jaire Alexander, right? And I will say this is a different situation than like trading for Terry McLaurin, because now it does matter of just like, hey, would the Steelers want to go after this 28-year-old guy who's been a good cornerback most of his years in the NFL? And it wouldn't require a draft pick to get him. You could just sign him at this point. And he's a former first rounder, 18th overall pick. But Alan, I want to give you the first crack at this. Why should or shouldn't they go after this guy if now that he's officially a free agent?
They should not go after Jaire. There's just none of it makes sense. First of all, Darius Slay was brought in as their free agent signing a cornerback. He's the best cornerback they have. You want to sign Alexander, Slay is still the best cornerback you have. So what are you doing with him? You going to bench Joey Porter Jr., who was your second-round pick, to play a mercenary guy you just signed from the Green Bay Packers? And by the way, Slay's only here for 1 year. You're going to sign Alexander to put him on the bench behind a player that he's probably better than and has every reason to think that he's better than. How's that going to go? Here's a guy who decided he ought to be a team captain, just wandered out to the 50-yard line and made the call on heads, tails.
That was
gets himself suspended. How do you think it's going to go signing a guy who did that and then telling him he's going to be sitting behind? Do you remember what happened with Melvin Ingram? Like, this is going to be that times 15. And he doesn't play in the slot. And by the way, he's hurt all the time, has lost a step, and is mostly a zone corner. Who does that sound like? The last two guys the Steelers just got rid of at the cornerback position because it didn't work out too well. It's just Dante Jackson and Pat Pete all over again. If the Steelers hadn't signed Darius Slay and they still had this opening at corner, there was definitely a time period where a trade for Alexander would have made sense, but that period is way in the past. If the Steelers are looking to add to the cornerback position, it needs to be someone who can play man-to-man in the slot, and that is not what Alexander is.
To your point about injuries, he has only played 7 games in each of his last 2 seasons. And whether that's because of injuries, you could also factor in suspensions, but still not a good look. And I think to your point, and this was my biggest thing about the Jaire Alexander situation, because I know a lot of people were really excited about it. But you look at the things like, going out to the 50-yard line to do that, the rebellious nature that he had within the Packers organization. And to me, the Packers are different than the Jets. Like, the Jets are a dysfunctional organization. The Packers are as close to the Steelers as I think most organizations can get as far as stability and, familial understanding and being in a smaller market, but still being a crown jewel of the NFL. Like there was a lot of reason for things to work out for Jaire Alexander in Green Bay. The Steelers are trying to curate their locker room now. And granted, now some people are probably saying, now, wait a minute, but Aaron Rodgers, I hear you. But I think Aaron Rodgers, like you said, being a mercenary and being the guy that you're bringing in for one season and just telling them, hey, just operate the offense and efficient, you can get away with that if he plays that. But Aaron Rodgers has to came to the table and most likely said, I'll play ball with you, because he understands this is his redemption story. Jaire Alexander wasn't playing ball with the team that drafted him, had given him a big contract, and that he had been with for years. And I'm not sure if the Steelers want to touch that. On top of the fact, like you bring up, you already signed Darius Slay for $10 million to play this year. You're hoping that Joey Porter Jr. becomes CB1 this year. And even behind Joey Porter Jr., you're hoping Corey Trice can develop a little bit this year. If you sign Jaire Alexander, like you said, he doesn't play in the slot. So now you're saying, Corey Trice, you're basically not going to see the field this year unless two dudes get hurt. And that's where I agree with you that I think Jaire Alexander wouldn't be the move the Steelers should take. There might be some other cornerbacks out there that if they become available, that would be interesting. But at this stage of Alexander's career, he's not the target. If the Steelers are targeting anything right now, it should still be a wide receiver 2 that fits them in the way that they need. And I agree, slot corner cover, cornerback could be, another part of that equation. But to me, the priority still needs to be wide receiver 2.
Yeah, if anything, I mean, I'm looking at the cornerback depth chart and going, hey, Green Bay, we were asking about wide receiver. Looks like you might need a corner. Can we Corey Trice? Like, I mean, I'd do Corey Trice for Romeo Doubs. I don't know. Maybe. Probably. Like, I just think that this is a situation where the Steelers don't – first of all, smart teams don't release good players in June because there's nothing wrong, first of all. And the Packers are a smart team. Right. I don't even think if the Steelers did approach Alexander, have any interest. I mean, he can see the depth chart as well as the rest of us. Like, he'd just be like, no, thanks. Somebody else is going to let me start. Appreciate it. Moving on. Like, this is not like, this is totally just people with like Madden brain who want to put like some like little like electronic avatars next to one another without thinking about the personalities of the people involved at all.
I agree with you in that sentiment, in that it doesn't make sense. They're now like teams like the Bills. Maybe they go after him because they're saying
the Dolphins are going to trade Jalen Ramsey. That's going to open up a giant hole there. There you go. The Rams need a corner.
Exactly.
Plenty of teams that are going to give him more of an opportunity than the Steelers would be able to.
So that brings you back to the wide receiver conversation, which we've explored a lot. I did this with Josh Taylor yesterday, but I want to pose this to you, Alan. Now that it's Aaron Rodgers and you're presuming that you're going to have $18 million in cap space after after his money figures into situations, the Steelers usually try to keep about $8 million in cap space to try to manage the regular season in case of emergencies. So that gives you about $10 million and maybe some more money if this Watt extension comes in. And we'll get to that part in the next segment here. But who should the Steelers be looking at? My stance has been they should wait until they get a sense of, with Aaron Rodgers, how do Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin look? Because if you think one of those two guys can be a breakout player this year with Aaron Rodgers, maybe you don't need to swing big at wide receiver. Maybe you can live with your Gabe Davises or your Amari Coopers or your Keenan Allens. But if you think that, hey, we need to go and be aggressive this year and maybe go and maybe swing and try to figure out a swap that would work out for us as a bigger name guy, that is a possibility that maybe you explore later. But what say you about how the Steelers should handle this situation right now?
Well, I don't think a big name is happening. I don't see one that's going to be available. I don't know where that trade. Like this time last year, we knew things were going south between the 49ers and Brandon Ayuk, and there was a potential for it to eventually get ugly enough to see him being traded. Who is that guy right now? And don't tell me Terry McLaurin. The Commanders are not letting him go out the door. They're just not, okay? So, like, who else is out there?
I've said this for weeks now.
Who else is out there that, like, even could play? Ayuk, I guess. I mean, there's nobody else that's out there that even seems remotely possibly could be traded that is a big name at wide receiver. That is just not happening. Gabe Davis doesn't appear to be healthy, but, like, if he was, that's probably about the best the Steelers could expect to do. I don't see better than that coming through the door.
I think that's the situation here is like quarterback. There's not the easy thing that opens up. Now, again, I think I believe in the old phrase, you prepare your crops for rain. Put yourself in a situation where if such an opportunity arises, like right now, Jaire Alexander's been cut. Jermaine Pratt, the linebacker, just got cut from the Bengals. And, the Steelers were in position to take advantage of Joe Hayden when he got cut by the Browns during that training camp. You could prepare yourself to be in a position where, like, hey, you know what? Maybe you do sign Allen or Cooper, whoever you think that could come in and give you a little bit of support there. But be prepared, which is what they could be in a situation if with the money being right. They can be prepared for, let's say, a receiver somewhere is raising the stink, and they're like, I want money, but I know you're not going to pay me very, very soon, and I want to figure out a way to get money, and I want to figure out to be someone's number 2, number 1, whatever gets me a nice contract next year in the NFL. Being ready for that moment might be the ticket that Omar Khan is really looking for here, and it just could be about patience to see if it does happen, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. And you just cross the bridge, like, all right, didn't work out, but don't force yourself into an issue where you give up capital that you really need for the future, especially considering the future. This upcoming draft is the thing you've been saving up for.
Yeah, and I think I don't think there's trades that they should walk away from to be patient and wait for that big fish. But I don't think they should just go panic sign Keenan Allen either. I don't think any of the free agents are really an answer. I think it's worth waiting. I do think there eventually will be a player available to them on the trade market or that gets cut or whatever that will be worth having as a wide receiver too, that fits the needs of their team, which is mostly someone that can play outside because they have Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin already on the inside. I don't see that's you're gonna walk a balance, right? You don't want to make a move just to make a move, and you don't want to make a bad move and then set yourself up to not be able to make a good move that happens later. Okay, Jaire Alexander, maybe not great, okay, but if let's say this happens with Sauce Gardner, right? All of a sudden, Sauce Gardner and the Jets are on the outs, and they got to find a way to trade him. And now the Steelers are we already signed Darius Slay. Now we can't that. That's the situation you don't want to be in, is that you got a lesser player because you panicked and just felt like you had to make a move. But then you also don't want last year's situation where they waited and they never got him. That's the balance that Omar Khan has to strike.
It's going to be a tough one to strike. But I think before that gets to happen, the Steelers have to resolve something else, and that's TJ Watt's contract. With minicamp beginning today, we get to see TJ Watt, and maybe we get to get our first sense of how is he going to handle things? Is this going to be another hold-in year like it was in 2021? Will the Steelers come to a extension with him sooner than they did back then? We'll talk about that next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter and Alan Saunders, stick with us. We'll be right back. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter with Alan Saunders, right here with SteelersNow.com. All right, Alan, let's talk about TJ Watt for a sec. He did not appear once during OTAs. We did not see him there at all. Didn't expect him to be there. His contract is up after this season. Everyone knows that's the saga. He posted the chucking up the deuces picture, which people thought on Instagram meant, oh, he's gone. It did not mean that. I don't think it did. You've had his brother JJ Watt going on Pat McAfee talking about that teams should pay their defensive superstars, particularly their edge rushers, before it's time. Yeah, they have to pay them because then it takes more money. And clearly, alluding to his brother right there in TJ. But to me, Alan, I've thought for a while, this is a deal that's going to get done. I think TJ's taking his time off out of OTAs. His family has just had, I think, a new kid. I think that he's taking time because he can take time. They're going to strike a deal, much like they struck a deal with Cam Hayward last year. I do wonder if there is a priority to get this deal done sooner, because if they're able to get this deal done and know effectively what will be their complete cap space for that move that maybe they want to make, if they want to if Sauce Gardner has a problem with the Jets or someone opens up that they do want to sign someone that's going to take a little bit more salary cap space, that they can use Watt's extension to clear some of that money and then say, okay, this is the pool of money we have to play with to find that extra addition we want to add to this roster.
I actually think it's the other way around, and it's the big reason the Steelers don't generally do contract extensions early in the offseason. You want to know exactly what you have committed to and exactly what number you need to get to, right? Like, you can always front load contracts and you can always backload contracts, but the most efficient way to use the salary cap is to spend all of it this year first and foremost. So they don't want to save money this year and not use it and push that money into the future, because then they only get cents on the dollar of that, because the cap's going to go up, right? That money's worth more now than later. They also don't want to put themselves in the situation where they gave all their money this year to TJ and now they don't have it to give to somebody else, right? And so it's beneficial for the Steelers to wait until everything else is done before they approach serious negotiations with their internal free agents, because then they will know exactly how much of TJ Watt's money they want to be in the first year of the deal. And that's a big part of the way the contract looks. And so, like, I understand TJ wants paid and he would prefer that this was done already, but it's not like the Steelers are just making him hang out for no reason. Like, there's a good reason to put your internal business at the end of your offseason calendar. It would, however, be nice if the Steelers could get all the other stuff wrapped up a little bit earlier than they did last year, and then maybe we don't have to worry about still pursuing free agent trade wide receivers until darn near September.
I think that's the thing that is interesting here, because the way you come at it, you say, like, hey, wait for it. To me, I was thinking more like, hey, get this done with the active. Like, hey, TJ, we're trying to add another player. We gonna move this money somehow. Let's move these X amount of dollars, and then you kind of know. But that's interesting from your perspective. It might be, hey, let's go get that player, whoever it's going to be, and then we tell TJ this is how much we need to clear. I think that's an interesting way of doing this. But to your point, I think it's also why the Steelers aren't in any rush, right? They know TJ Watt wants to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. He knows he wants to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. He knows that they want him to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. So at the end of the day, he's going to end up being a Pittsburgh Steeler. This is not going to turn into Trey Hendrickson with the Bengals, where he's posting every day about how he's been so maligned by their lack of contract negotiations or anything like that. I think his side knows, just like the Steelers side knows, this is that they're going to pay him what he's worth. It's probably going to be around that $40 million range that Myles Garrett got, and that'll be the money that he's happy about. He'll show up refreshed and be good to go, and still be one of the best defensive players in football this year.
Yeah, that's the other part of this, is that there is such a narrow range that they could possibly sign. Like, the Browns have essentially negotiated this contract for them. There's nothing else to do. It's going to be within 5% one way or the other of what Myles Garrett got. Like, it can't feasibly be anywhere outside of that range. Like, it just can't. So how far apart could they be? Like, maybe the length is a sticking point. I guess that's possible. TJ's getting up there. Maybe the Steelers would want to be very sticklers about, we're only going to do 3 years or something like that. But, like, I just can't fathom the actual negotiations of this contract getting contentious. The only thing that seems to be upsetting anyone right now is that they're on different timelines. TJ wanted this done already, and the Steelers would like to wait.
I think that's the thing there. We will see how that proceeds. Again, minicamp starts today, so both Alan and I will be there on hand at UPMC Rooney Sports Complex, where Aaron Rodgers will speak. We'll have reactions to that, and of course, all the other things that happen as minicamp begins today, Tuesday, and goes through Thursday this week. Alan, thanks so much for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let people know they can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Hey, it's _PGH on social media. PGH Steelers Now is my site's account. SteelersNow.com. So where you can find all my written work and my podcast, Steelers Morning Rush and Steelers Afternoon Drive, or on the Steelers Now YouTube page, or anywhere you find podcasts.
He's Alan Saunders. Thank you, Alan, for joining us. And thank you all for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, wherever you get your social medias. I'm most likely there. At Carter Critiques is always my handle. You can read my work in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com, including my film study on Aaron Rodgers from 2025 and striking the right balance of what to ask out of him in the 2025 offense. for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And as always, you can find this show on your favorite podcasting apps on YouTube, like the Locked On Steelers podcast. Subscribe to this channel to get all of our Monday through Friday episodes. We've got tomorrow after the first day of Steelers minicamp, giving you a feel for what's going on there right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.